Hey writers, welcome back to part 2 of the writing masterclass on story structure using Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Thank you so much for watching the first video. These are the types of videos I'm just really excited to continue to make and to use books in order to understand writing craft. It's just so much fun. This part goes from the end of the midpoint, so from chapter 13 to the epilogue. If you haven't watched the first part of this writing masterclass, definitely go back and do so. Also, if you haven't read Shadow and Bone, just know that there are a lot of spoilers because I talk about everything that happens in the book. Hopefully, you're able to take notes and take something from this and geek out as much as I do when talking about books. So we just came from chapter 12, which was the true midpoint. Chapter 13 has some other really important things happening here, but it doesn't necessarily fit a beat. Not every chapter has to fit a beat. The outline is just that, an outline. As long as every chapter and every scene moves the story forward in some way, then it's okay. We have 2 scenes in chapter 13. In scene 1, Alina has been sleeping better, eating more, and she is even stronger. So this is the reaction really to our midpoint goal. Remember that she had that first goal. Well, it was really the second goal that she's had in the whole book, was to get power. Now that she's completed that, this is that reaction to the goal. Because if you remember, I said before, every action of some sort needs a reaction. Physics laws still apply to writing. Since she got her power, she is now sleeping better, eating more, and she's even stronger. These were all big issues for her in the first half of the book. Kind of a worn out stereotypical trope now, but Shadow and Bone was written in 2012, and so it's okay. We can give it a pass because really that early 2010s era when a lot of young adult novels were really coming up in big fame, like they were making the ground rules for what we have for a lot of books today. So that's a pretty stereotypical trope now of main character is weak until she gets power, now they're strong. That's kind of what happened here. It means that she's also doing well in Botkin's classes, which is also exciting because this was another obstacle that she overcame. Her releasing the hold on her power gave her this newfound energy and strength. What also happens in scene 1 is we learn about the winter fete that's coming up. And we also get a better picture of the court as it stands. We get more info on the king, the queen, and the 2 princes. Genya and Alina are also trying on dresses for the upcoming party for this winter fete. And this is really a bonding scene for the 2 of them, showing how far their relationship has come and how comfortable they are around each other. They talk of Genya's crush on David as well. It might seem a little scattered of what's going on here, how I laid it out, right, in just this like matter-of-fact paragraph. So let's break down what's really happening here. First, we have the reaction to the midpoint goal getting completed. And remember, this also is kind of called a false victory. 2, we have promise of an event in the future. This is moving the plot forward without use of a time jump or anything like that. Since that first goal was completed, we did get a new goal in the last chapter of chapter 12, the true goal, the central conflict of the novel that usually arises around the midpoint, where we have to find Mortsova's herd, get Alina a amplifier for her power. That's still the main goal. But we are moving the plot forward because now there's something to look forward to in the future. Huge, huge, huge. That's still moving it forward. We know that's on the horizon. And since we're talking about it, we know that setting is probably going to be important. Probably some shit's about to go down there, you know? We also have Genya and Alina relationship building. This is also important, and I think these kind of scenes are hard to balance the relationship building of characters with plot moving forward. So I think it was really good here that a lot kind of happened in this first scene. So we see the reaction, we're moving the plot forward, but then we also get this relationship building. Sometimes when we read books that might be described as like all vibes, no plot, we get a lot of this relationship building and no plot, right? But we still need the relationship building. It is important. And the reason why having Genya and Alina's relationship really build here and show that their bonds as friends is getting stronger is, if you've read the book, you know that in the future, or at the end really, of this book, Genya will commit a betrayal to Alina. Sorry, again, if you haven't read Shadow and Bone, I still recommend you reading it and maybe even like following along with like what I showed. See if you agree and study it in that way. Since it's YA, it's pretty quick to read. And again, it's very structured in its format. So very nice. But Genya does commit a betrayal in Alina's mind. So this is important. We need to build that relationship, show that they're truly friends, so the betrayal hits not only harder for our main character, Alina, but it has to also hit hard for us. So we are still in chapter 13, moving into scene 2, and we are back in Baghra's cottage, and the Darkling is there. So Alina's going back to Baghra for another lesson, but now her power has fully been released, and the Darkling is there. Alina's excited for him to be impressed because she just figured out her power. But instead, he says that she is not enough still. And Alina's hurt by that. The Darkling and Alina leave Baghra's cottage and stand by the lake. Right outside Baghra's cottage, it's explained there's like a place called the Little Lake. And so they stand there, looking out over it, very pensive. The Darkling still believes in Morzova's herd and wants to find it. So that is where his thoughts go. We are reminded about our new true goal. Let's actually do a really quick outline again of like the goals that happened. So the first goal for Alina was really to cross the fold. If we remember all the way back to the first couple chapters, that was the main conflict. They just wanted to cross the fold, and survive. That's important. There was a lot at stake in that first goal. They end up doing that, but only because, it started that inciting incident. She saved everyone. She became the Sun Summoner. The second goal was to fit in at the little palace and unleash her power on her own. She'd be able to fit in with the other people if she was able to do this with her power. Now we have this third goal, which is really the true goal or the central conflict, which is find Morzova's herd and get Alina an amplifier. So that is where we're at with goals. The most important one is this third goal that we just uncovered. And that is what the Darkling's talking about. They share a bonding moment, and then the Darkling kisses her. Why is that so grainy? Probably because the Darklina shippers should not exist. But let's find a better one. Okay, so they share a bonding moment, and then the Darkling kisses her. Ivan comes up, which is the Darkling's right hand, and interrupts, saying the Apparat is growing impatient and they leave Alina reeling. This is important because not only do we have these goals that are pushing the plot forward, we do have two love stories going on. We love a love triangle. We have Mal, and then we have the Darkling. Every subplot, I hate to break it to you, if you did not know, every subplot in your book should also have an arc. Any plot needs this same arc, or a rising, falling stakes arc. However you want to visualize it, it still needs a plot. For Mal's love story, we have been on this journey where Alina was holding on to him, right? And the midpoint of their relationship arc was when Alina let him go. This was a turning point. This was a huge revelation for her. She had to let Mal go. The midpoint for the Darkling's relationship is this scene where Alina and the Darkling kiss. Finally. We've kind of been waiting for something like this to happen. Either Mal was going to show up and they were going to kiss, or her and the Darkling were going to kiss. Because the way Leigh Bardugo is writing it is the Darkling and Alina had something simmering while Alina was still holding on to Mal. So this is a midpoint of their relationship arc, okay? And it leaves Alina reeling. So what's actually happening in this scene is something that can be called the false goal. So we just had a false victory in the last chapter, and we now have our false goal. that's happened, a romance with the Darkling. This now becomes a new goal in Alina's mind because when it came Mal versus the Darkling, she's now kind of like, I'm all about this guy because me and him kissed and I've been feeling something and I've been feeling lonely and I don't know if me and Mal are gonna work out. So now my false goal has become this romance with the Darkling. It's false because this is like a trail that our main character is gonna go down that's gonna lead to like a not so good outcome. This is an optional beat, I think, in stories, but I do think it adds for extra layers when we get that central conflict that we should be focused on. And then it's almost like our main character gets distracted by this new false goal that's happening. But overall, this chapter is so important, even though it doesn't really fit into a stereotypical story beat, which is why I think this chapter is so cool to break down. In chapter 4, we have 2 scenes. The first scene doesn't stereotypically fit inside a beat, but the second scene does, in the same way that chapter 12, had that first scene and then we had the midpoint in scene 2. So after the Darkling and Alina share a kiss, it's the next day. The Darkling has yet again disappeared from the little palace. She doesn't see him anywhere, which makes Alina a bit hurt because they just shared that kiss. They just had a moment that was now unlocking and working towards this false goal, this false hope that Alina has that maybe a relationship can form. And she's kind of she doesn't really know what that kiss means just yet. And she's trying to remind herself that, he probably kisses a lot of Grisha women. She's nothing special, push it out of her mind so she doesn't only worry about that. Talk turns to the Winter Fete once more, reminding us that this is coming up and something big probably will happen here. And again, the Grisha will be putting on a performance in a different way than they did for the king when Alina arrived. This will be more of like an entertainment performance. So they're more like entertainers. Her kefta arrives and it's all black with gold embroidery. This is huge. If you remember, there was a scene where Alina was able to choose her kefta. The Darkling wanted her in black, which was his color. She wanted to be blue, so that she fit in with the other summoners. Zoya sees the black kefta and gets upset. Only the Darkling gets to wear black, and now Alina gets to wear black. This is signifying another shift in her role. And Genya is seeing a shift in Alina, because when Genya lets Alina know at the end of the scene that the Darkling is back at the little palace, Alina kind of gets more excited. She lights up a bit. And Genya then gives her the infamous warning of be careful of powerful men. This is our first audible warning of the Darkling from someone close to Alina. This is also signaling to the readers a couple things. One, this is another theme that's very prominent in the book, and Leigh Bardugo has talked about how this is a prominent theme in the book, how she doesn't want people to be rooting for the Darkling and Alina because the Darkling is a bad, evil man. So this contributes to another theme of the book. This also sets the stage for the rest of the book. We are about to tumble fast towards the ending. If we have like a stereotypical visual of what a book looks like, and this was chapter 12 and this was chapter 13, we're about here now and we are gaining speed. We are picking up, rolling fast towards the lowest point of the book, the all is lost, the dark night of the soul. In scene 2, we start the beat of the bad guys close in. The Winter Fete is finally here. We've been building up to that for a couple chapters, and Alina's black kefta causes quite a stir. Because remember, this is the Darkling color. She's making a statement here. He's making a statement here. Alina sees Duke Karamzov at the Winter Fete. So they're in this party mingling. This is the Duke who took her in as an orphan with Mal. And this is a big thing that it's kind of tropey now, but used to be very popular. I still think it can be very, very effective if done well. Alina sees the Duke who took her in as an orphan. She spent quite some years in this man's home with Mal, but he didn't remember her. This is showing the readers and Alina how far Alina is now from her past life. And that's honestly what books are all about. That's why story structure, I think, really does matter, because you can play around with it, but at the end of the day, most stories are about how someone does or doesn't grow, but ultimately about how far away they are from that starting point. So we are reflecting on that here when she sees the Duke and he doesn't remember her, which is very sad. The demonstration from the Grisha is about to start, that entertainment for people at the party. But Ivan gives the Darkling news that seems to make him happy. So this is giving us pause. Like, we're meant to ask, like, what is that? What is your news? The Darkling and Alina do their typical demonstration and everyone at the party is blown away. Hope fills the room because Alina's mission with the Darkling is to destroy the Fold. People are very excited. Then the Darkling pulled her into an empty room and kisses her. Things are heating up now between them, between this false goal, okay? This is working towards that false goal. A connection is there though. They are like really kissing, going at it in this empty room, and Alina could feel power, desire, but also anger. She's kind of confused and a little scared about that. Like, why are you angry? So Alina questions him on the feelings and says, you know, you don't want to be doing this, do you? And he admits he doesn't want to, but he's really smooth and he plays it off by saying, because desire is weakness. And he then also tells us what was making him so happy earlier. His hunters found Moritzova's herd. That was the news he got. And that's where his mind is. But he's not there now, is he? He's with her. He's trying to be like, I'm proving to you I want to be here. I don't want to do this because I want you so bad. And there's more pressing things to be happening, but I'm here kissing you. So they start kissing again. Things start heating up again, but they hear someone outside their room and it breaks this trance that they're in. So the Darkling leaves because he's like, maybe let's not, I'm gonna go tend to my things. But he does ask, can I come into your bed tonight? Like, can I come by your room later? Saying like, we're gonna pick this back up, don't you worry. And she agrees. Alina's excited. Again, this is a new false goal. She kind of has like false hope about what's happening between her and the Darkling. She's excited that they kissed. She's seeing this as validation for who she is, and she's someone powerful and wanted by the Darkling, which is something that she's never felt before in her life. So she's leaving, the Darkling's leaving, and the Apparat catches up to her in the hall. But Alina tries to get back to the party. She's like, I don't want to talk to you because you creep me out, if you remember. So she ignores him. And after more time at the party passes, she wants to go back to her room, and then to her freaking surprise, she sees Mal. This is crazy. Right? This is crazy because now the storyline with Mal that's happening and the storyline with the Darkling that's happening have like crossed. They've intertwined right here. She was just kissing the Darkling and so excited, but the first half of this book, she's been so excited about Mal, but then she let him go, but now he's there. Okay, huge moment. She realizes Mal is the one who found Moritzova's herd because he's a tracker. They have a cold and bitter exchange. So it's tense. It's not good. Mal hasn't gotten any of her letters and there is a disconnect in conversation. Mal is upset about seeing Alina and the Darkling together. He didn't see them kiss, but he was like, I saw the way you guys were looking at each other on the ballroom floor. She admits that she likes the way he looks at her. They're getting into a huge argument and Mal storms off, and for the first time ever, Alina lets him go without running after him. And you're probably thinking, why in the heck is this the bad guys close-in scene? There's a lot of words on screen, a lot of craziness that's happening. So let me break it down into what happened in kind of like a bullet point format, and then we'll pull from there. The Winter Fete is happening. That is our backdrop. This is our setting for this scene. The Winter Fete, which we knew big things were gonna happen here, and it does. The Darkling and Alina kiss. Has some undertones of anger though. The Darkling's hunters found Moritzova's herd. The Apparat tries to talk to Alina. Alina sees Mal and they have an argument. Okay, and let's get reminded what the bad guys close in is from Save the Cat. They say, in the bad guys close in, stakes have raised and tension is higher, okay? My favorite word, raising the stakes. adding tension. External bad guys may be literally closing in, or psychological internal bad guys may be causing more problems. We have both here. This is a very interesting bad guys close in because the Darkling is our bad guy. We aren't fully convinced of that yet though, and neither is our main character, Alina. But with the Darkling, he marked Alina as his in Black Hefta. He kisses her, drawing her closer, and he found the herd for Alina's amplifier. This is all stuff that's gonna start really coming to a head for the finale. If this is Alina in the circle here, this is our main girl, Alina. I mean, he's coming at all sides. He's closing in on her. He's shrinking her without her even realizing it. He's going to turn on her, okay? He wants the amplifier for her, but not to destroy the fold, to help his mission in increasing the fold. We're about to learn that in the next chapter. He found Alina's amplifier that is going to be turned and used against her. He's kissing her, drawing her closer to him, and manipulating her psychologically. And he marked her as his to everyone in the country. He's closing in on her physically and mentally, internally. So this beat it looks a little bit different, I will admit, than some other beats, but I think that's a good thing to show. Like, not always does the bad guys close in beat have to be a literal group of bad guys hunting them down and closing in. That does happen in a couple chapters, but it's actually not the bad guys close in beat. Another person who tries to talk to her, who's also a kind of bad guy in the whole series, the series as a whole, is the Apparat. He's closing in as well. He's trying to make some tension. He adds some tension here because you're like, what does he want? And Alina ignores him, which will have ramifications. And then Alina sees Mal, and they have an argument. This creates psychological tension and psychological states that are closing in, like it says below. Mal and her had an argument for like the first time ever in their relationship. She should be excited to see Mal. She hasn't seen him in so long. He never got her letters. She's confused. He's pissed off that she was looking at the Darkling that way. Alina's like, what the fuck ever? And they have this huge argument. She's feeling more alone and more lost now. Even though she's closer to the Darkling, she somehow feels more lost. And all these things are pinching her in, physically and mentally. Chapter 15, we have something that could be called the moment of truth, or, a plot twist. This is another like no going back moment. Okay, she's about to launch into a separate goal again. So Alina's now in her room. She left the party. She's reeling from everything that just happened. Baghra comes by, even though she was expecting the Darkling. Because remember, he was like, I'm gonna come to your room later. But Baghra comes instead. And she bursts in the room and says, you need to leave right now. That is a stake raiser if I've ever seen one. Something bad is going down and Baghra is like, you got to go. Baghra takes her hand and she's running with her through a secret passage and then gives her that moment of truth that I just mentioned. This is that plot twist. She's gonna break it down and she's gonna be like, sweetie, this is what's been going on and you have not caught on to it. Maybe the readers have, maybe they haven't, but this is the time where we spill the beans. The author shows their cards respectively. Baghra thought that they had more time, but the Darkling is close to finding Moritzova's stag, like he already told Alina, and he will use it as a weapon. This is truth number 1. The Darkling created the fold, and he's actually the Black Heretic, not his great-great-grandfather. Truth number 2. He wants to expand the fold, not destroy it. Truth number 3, and Baghra is his mother. Truth number 4. It doesn't matter how many truths you spill or how many plot twists you have, but what does matter, and why I'm like kind of counting them out, is that this was all stuff that Leigh knew in the beginning. Okay, so when we're thinking about outlining and planning a story, we of course need to know like a twist in the beginning, but any secrets that get revealed about our characters, we need to know from the get-go because it will change how we write them in those earlier chapters. All of these things are kind of trickled in to all the previous chapters, which if you haven't, again, read Shadow and Bone, or if you haven't in a while, go back, Read the first chapters and you'll see how Leigh weaves this stuff in without explicitly saying it until this chapter. It's also YA, so know that some of these things are a little bit more on the nose than in an adult book, which is why I chose YA to study this, because it blatantly kind of shows all of this stuff. The only mistake that the Darkling has made in his plan that hasn't let him expand it on his own is the Volcra. If you remember way back in the beginning, the Volcra was initially our like bad guys in the fold, because our first goal was we wanted to cross the fold with surviving, and the Volcra was the opposition to that. The Volcra is actually the opposition to the Darkling as well, because when he created the fold, all the men that were in the land of where the fold now is turned into these monsters of the Volcra. And so even when he goes in, they attack him. But now with Alina, he can use his power to shield himself, keep the Volcra away, and have enough time to expand the fold from within. So Alina takes all of this in, and this is usually like a turning point. Alina makes a decision. Is she going to believe Baghra or go with her previous beliefs that she had? Well, she's gonna go with Baghra, and she's gonna say, okay, what do I do? And in chapter 16, we have something called the Doomed Plan, which really fits, right? In the last chapter, Baghra is like, get out, you need to leave. And Alina is like, what do I do? Well, in chapter 16, Baghra tells her, and then Alina enacts this doomed plan. We know that as writers and as readers, that we are hurtling down a path towards this all is lost dark night of the soul moment that every book has. So in scene 1, Baghra says, slip out, go to West Ravka, which is past the fold. Find this guy, Verloren, who's a Kurt's traitor. Her passage has already been paid for by Baghra. So she instantly jumps into an acting troupe's carriage outside because the party's still going on, and hides, taking her out of Osalta, which is the capital. When the carriage stops, she gets out and she's in Balakrev. She keeps traveling and stays off the main road like she was told. She also sees people praying to her in the streets, which is important. She sees that like so many of the commoners around the country are praying to her and worshiping her as a saint. In scene 2, when she's on the street in a different city, she's grabbed by a guy who's, trying to take her somewhere, and she's getting scared. So this is another internal opposition. This is person closing in on her. She's now on the run. Okay, now this guy grabs her. She flashes light into his eyes, and we learn that she actually has, I don't really love this because this was just kind of like convenient in my mind, but she got mirrored gloves made by David, who's a fabricator who we got introduced to. But then a soldier comes and he recognizes her. He's like, wait a second, you're the, I'm gonna say sun summoner, and then she starts running. So this is another bad guy closing in. So this was just a bad guy on the street, a soldier recognizing who she is. She's running into a river and escapes, and she hides. Also, it's winter, the Winterfell, right? Snow everywhere, because this is like a fictional fantasy Russia. So snow everywhere. She hides in the snow-covered woods, and the soldiers can't find her. She hears them being like, nope, not here, nothing's here. But someone does find her. Mal. In the beginning, we might think that this is a bad guy closing in because the last time she saw Mal was not good. He ends up actually being an ally, which is really great. So they walk in awkward silence for long stretches of time before Alina asks if he had found the stag. Mal says no, but they are close. But the Darkling's hunters cannot find it without him, because as we heard in a previous chapter, Mal is one of the best hunters and trackers around. Mal asks why she ran away, and she says she's trying to save the world. Mal takes first watch at a camp they set up, and Alina sleeps. So this chapter sets Alina off on this doomed plan. She has to run, and all of a sudden already is starting to get doomed, right? She's not even close to making it out to West Ravka, but she runs into Mal, which we thought could be a bad guy closing in, but we realized, nope, he's actually going to be an ally and is now going to help her through this back half of the book. Alina tells Mal what the Darkling is planning. So they're now moving through the woods together, living side by side, even though it's a little awkward because they aren't talking about their relationship, but they do start to divulge information about what they both have. So Alina tells Mal what the Darkling is planning, and Mal now also has nothing to lose. Since he went after Alina, he has become a deserter of the First Army, which is a huge offense. And he would have nothing to return to. He also starts to tell her where Moritzova's herd is, and they make a plan to find the stag themselves. because the stag could make Alina powerful of fighting the Darkling. This originally was our conflict, our goal that was discovered after the midpoint. Put a pin in it. We're gonna come back to it. That's a good pin, no? Hell yeah, put a pin in that. Okay, they come to a village and it's Butter Week. How exciting. I thought this was so cute. It's like a little festival called Butter Week. It reminds them of their time in Cramson as orphans, as a kid. So they go into the village and they're having fun, and it's a cute bonding scene moment between Alina and Mal. But suddenly, they are ambushed by 2 men and being robbed. Remember, we are still in the bad guys closing in. We already had 2 stressful points in the last chapter. This is another stressful point for them. They are robbed. They're ambushed. The guys are taunting them about, oh, are you the deserter? People are talking about how Mal left, and obviously he's being looked for. Alina uses her mirrored gloves again to get them away, and they end up having a night full of laughter, and it feels like old times. Like they get back to a safe camp, they start laughing about how crazy that was, and it's a bonding moment for Alina and Mal. We do have another bad guy closing in, so another moment of, oh my gosh, are they gonna get caught as they're running on this doomed plan? We also have this bonding scene between Alina and Mal, which progresses their romantic plot relationship forward. But we have this, they make a plan to find the stag themselves. And let's remind ourselves how many goals we've had. I'm sorry, I've said this a million times, but so important. And now we have something that could be called the penultimate goal. Penultimate is just like the second to last. So we have completed. Alina survived the fold. She found her power. We realized that this was the main story of the book. So this central conflict, the third goal, hasn't been completed yet, but it is like the main story arc of this back half of the book. It's the main reason for this book now. The false goal was kind of accomplished. Alina thought this is what she wanted. That's why the 2 kisses were happening, things were ramping up, but then she realized, no, this is not a goal that I want to go after anymore because the Darkling is a bad guy. And now we have the penultimate goal. The next goal coming out of our doomed plan. Now that they have each other, they have nothing to lose. So what is their new goal? They are going to find Morozov. I keep using Morozov's herd and stag is like used interchangeably in this book. To find Morozov's herd themselves. For Alina, it's kind of the same thing, right? As our central conflict. But in this one, the Darkling was spearheading this because the Darkling was on our side. Now he's no longer on our side, so we're going to find it ourselves. And that is now our new goal that we are rushing towards. So in chapter 18, we are working towards that penultimate goal of now Mal and Alina have decided that they want to find the stag themselves. This is kind of that journey chapter to get them to that goal point. Scene 1, they're traveling, they're walking and trekking through the snow. Alina wakes Mal in the middle of the night to make her promise him that if it comes down to it, that Mal will kill her. And he cannot let the Darkling have her because that's what the Darkling ultimately wants. Mal does absolutely not want to do that. Obviously, they have a bond, they've had this long-time friendship with other feelings bubbling underneath, and Mal does not agree. After some time, he eventually promises. Scene 2, Mal the next morning gets a feeling that the stag is close, and he's like in a frenzy. He's like, let's get up, let's go. I think I know where the stag is. And they rush to leave toward the direction Mal is feeling. This is when Mal tells Alina that his friends, actually, that we had seen in some of the beginning chapters when they were together, were actually killed when they were tracking the stag. And Mal blames himself and Alina comforts him. I know I'm writing it pretty point blank here for what scene 2 is, but even though there's not of crazy action in this chapter is really laying that groundwork for Alina and Mal's relationship. Alina's letting him know, like, if something happens, Mal, you need to kill me because the Darkling will get me and it will be bad. He doesn't want to, but he promises that he would. And on their way to find the stag, you know, Mal is opening up with what's been happening to him since they've been separated, and they have this chance to reconnect in an emotional way. Chapter 19 is where we get to the all is lost beat. The all is lost beat is when our main character has a moment of either, one, this is something they've feared is going to happen, or two, they realize they're going to lose. And it could be both of these things simultaneously. On another day on their venture, Mal finally says sorry to Alina for what he said at the winter fete. They got into that huge fight. Alina also apologizes. Mal has his confessional of missing Alina every hour, every day, and that it took him so long to see her, but he sees her now, and they finally kiss. So this is when Mal and Alina have that like confess your love moment, and it seems all amazing and well because they finally kiss. And of course, after they pull away miraculously, the stag comes up over the hill, and it seems like they're about to get everything they've wanted. They discuss how to take it down, with Alina needing to make the final kill because it's going to be her amplifier. But Alina suddenly has second thoughts. The stag is beautiful and a living thing, and she hasn't killed a living thing before, and she does not want to kill it. But of course, we had this like rising of hope. We were getting excited. We were like, oh my gosh, we might actually get to everything we want to do. It immediately plummets because the Darkling appears from the trees and an arrow comes out of nowhere to take down the stag. And this beautiful creature falls. Alina shields the stag with herself. Alina is yelling at Mal to kill her like he promised, but he just can't do it. And since he can't keep that promise, which of course, because then the story would end there, the stag is officially killed, and David takes the antlers and fits a collar for Alina, melding it to her, becoming her amplifier. So typically after the all is lost beat, you would have a dark night of the soul. This is an optional beat, but the dark night of the soul is going to be our main character's internal reaction. So having that interiority about what is going on, how they're feeling in this moment. We're really seeing them truly hopeless, but we're getting that internal reaction opposed to an external reaction. I don't really know if Shadow and Bone has a fully internal moment for the Dark Night of the Soul. But in this scene, they all travel. So now that's the Darkling and David, Mal and Alina are traveling to the Darkling's camp back in Kribursk again at the Fold. This is such a lovely thing that Leigh does, and a lot of writers do. This is where we actually began the story. No stories need to do this, but we began here. So it's really showing how different and how the same everything is at the same time, right? We are ending the story where we began. The Darkling makes Alina swear she won't say anything to the other Grisha. He has kept her treason under wraps this whole time. So the Darkling starts to spread doubt into Alina's mind and lets her know that Mal will never understand her and that her and the Darkling are the same. And this was a bad line, but this is important, so hold on to that. There's a saying in this book that Leigh uses to describe the magic of like calls to like, and the Darkling here is saying, you and me, Alina, we are alike. We call to each other. But she rejects that notion. The Darkling threatens to kill or torture Mal if she does not obey his orders, and so Alina obeys. When she gets to the camp, she looks weak and ill, and all the people that she was getting to know back at the little palace during those fun and games chapters are worried about her, but she plays it off that she's fine. Genya is here again. And remember, Genya is one of Alina's really only like closest friend from the little palace. And she's now wearing red, which means that she moved up in the Grisha ranks. And Alina tries to convince Genya the rumors are true and the Darkling is bad, but Genya's steadfast and says whatever the Darkling wants must be done. She lets Alina know that the king has taken ill and the Apparat is ruling in his stead. Alina realizes Genya has been in on the plans all along. Even in the midst of all this betrayal, she tells Genya to tell David she forgives him. So there's a couple things happening here. That's why I don't think that this chapter is necessarily a Dark Night of the Soul. It's more, I think it's kind of a continuation of the All is Lost beat. Not only did the thing happen that they didn't want to happen, the Darkling got to the stag, we also have this ultimate betrayal from Genya, which is huge for our character Alina. We also are understanding now what has happened to the country and what's been happening behind the scenes, which we've been getting little seeds of this throughout the whole book. And then we have this comment by the Darkling, where he's starting to spread doubt in Alina's mind. And she's trying to say, or he's trying to say, that her and the Darkling are the same. This is important because if you didn't know, Shadow and Bone is a 3-part series. This is just part 1. This conversation sets the groundwork for what is to come in the series. And I could do a whole video on how to outline a series, but this series is also pretty good to show that. And yes, this conversation sets the groundwork for what Alina and the Darkling are going to go through in other books. And then we kind of have this human moment, I guess. For Alina, we really are reminded who Alina is. In the midst of all of this betrayal and hurt, she tells Genya to tell David she forgives him for making the collar for her. I have chapter 21 as us breaking into 3. In Save the Cat, the break into 3 definition is a new piece of information is discovered, and the hero realizes what they must do to solve all the problems that have been created in Act 2. Save the Cat says that this should happen about 80% of the way through the book. This is just an example to show you that we don't have to always, be so rigid with the outlining. Chapter 21 is not 80% of the way through the book. We only have a total of 24 chapters in reality, because there was a prologue and then there's also an epilogue, but there's really only 22 chapters. So this is damn near the end. Definitely not 80%, but the finale does happen very fast in this book. And so I just think this is a good example of it doesn't have to be very rigid as long as you're hitting all of these emotional points. And the emotional points that we're trying to hit here is that the hero, which is Alina, our main character, realizes what they must do to solve all the problems that have been created in Act 2. And there's a very subtle part of that in this chapter. So we have 2 scenes here. In scene 1, Ivan takes Alina to see the Darkling and they exchange heavy words. They have a very big conversation here. The Darkling cannot figure out why Alina is so attached to Mal. The Darkling has given her power. He is the one who will free the Grisha from the king, but Alina sees through all of his lies. Then we have the very famous line of the Darkling saying, "Fine, make me your villain." The Darkling asks her to beg for Mal's life, and so she does, which shows us and reminds us that Mal is important to her. And this shows her true worry and fear. And then he lets her know that he actually can be merciful when kissing her. Gross. But instead leaves her with the knowledge that the Darkling will feed Mal to the Volcra tomorrow on the fold. The mercy that he will give is Alina getting one last goodbye. So not that merciful, right? In scene 2, Ivan leads her down to the barracks where Mal is locked up. She gets to stay there for the night, to have one last night with him. Alina warns Mal that he will die tomorrow, and Mal faces this fact. He pardons her for the part that loved the Darkling, and they laugh about how would she have blamed him for every girl that he's been with. So they're really trying to throw everything under the bridge, Let's just focus on us together right now. They really found each other again in the end, and that's what matters. And if you remember all the way in the beginning, we kind of asked the question of what would become of us if we had to go on separate paths? Well, here is the answer. The answer is that they will always find each other. They kiss through the bars and they end the night reminiscing on old times. She falls asleep and she dreams of the stag. She'll truly realize it, I guess, in the last chapter, but this is the hero getting the piece of information that she needs to solve all of the problems. And let's see how that happens. Now we have the last official chapter, chapter 22, and this is our finale. There will be 2 scenes. Scene 1, Ivan brings Alina back to her tent, where Genya does her magic and fixes Alina up. Then they were on the skiff, preparing to cross the fold. On the skiff are Fjerdan and Shuhan ambassadors, people from the 2 different regions that are always at war with Ravka. We get a moment of reflection of the first time that Alina went and crosses the fold versus now. Shows that we are ending the story where we began. They enter, and while the Volcra start to descend in, Alina makes a path of light through the fold for the skiff to pass. Alina did this purely by one word from the Darkling, showing the newfound power he has over her. So in this scene, Alina tries to stop the power from happening, but the Darkling just says now, and the power bursts through her, creating this path of light. So this is showing that now that Alina has this amplifier that the Darkling killed and it got fashioned to her like a collar, they share this chain of power that the Darkling can pull on. Then as the path shone through to Novokrobursk, which is the city on the other side of the fold, the Darkling enacted his plan and grew the fold to the horror of everyone on the skiff. Novokrobursk became darkness. So the Darkling enacted the plan that Bagra said he would, or he started it. He pushed the fold past its usual bounds and engulfed a whole city. His message got across to everyone. Do as you are told by me, or I will send the shadow fold wherever I like. In scene 2, the Darkling says that everyone on the skiff will now return, but the prisoner stays, which is Mal, and Ivan throws him overboard. Alina throws her light onto him, protecting Mal from the Volcra, and as she's trying to get stopped by Ivan, she actually punches Ivan to get away, which I just threw in there because it was a great scene. The Darkling orders her to pull it back, trying to use this newfound power and connection, but Alina says no. But then the light still starts to recede. So again, she's trying to push back from the Darkling's power. She's trying to tell him no, but whatever he says, it's happening. But in that moment, the memory of the stag, like we said from the last chapter, comes to her and shows her the strength and the power of mercy, something the Darkling would never understand. Because if you remember, Alina tries to save the stag. And when they came upon the stag, she realized she didn't want to kill it. It was a beautiful creature. And when the Darkling went after the stag, she was trying to save it. She uses this recognition and she explodes light everywhere. So she's recognizing what a stereotypical trope, I know, that the power is within all along. She's now done this twice in the book, so we really are hammering that trope home. The Darkling is upset and tries to call the darkness, but Alina does the cut, which is huge, and splits the skiff mast in two. If you remember, the cut is what the Darkling did to a human, and Alina was horrified when the Darkling did this in the beginning of the book. This is really important. I'm gonna come back to it in a moment. She's yelling at everyone on the skiff to help her and go with her to turn on the Darkling, but no one moves. She runs to Mal instead, and the Darkling reminds her that she can never run away from him. And the Darkling is trying to get her to stop, and this is also important and will play into this right here. He says, "Is this your idea of mercy?" And she said, "Yes, the mercy I learned from you." She performs the cut again and cuts the skiff in half, sealing everyone's fate as well as her own. They, meaning Alina and Mal, run through the darkness and escape the fold, looking out at the true sea for the first time, and they burn her kefta as a symbolic end. So that is the end of the book before we get to the epilogue. This is really big though. In a couple of videos, I'm actually going to go through character arcs. I don't know if I'm going to use Shadow and Bone to talk about character arcs, but it's very important that every character that you write goes through some sort of arc. And it's either to show that they have changed or they stay the same. I'll get into all of that in a different video, but this is a really good example of showing Alina's arc. In the beginning, she was horrified when the Darkling did this magical, powerful effect called the cut, and only few Grisha are able to do it. The Darkling was the only one of their current time. Alina now performs it because she has this amplifier, and it makes her more powerful. She performs the cut and splits the skiff mast in two. At first, this shows her difference to the Darkling, right? She didn't use the cut to kill anyone. She used it to cut the mast and send a message. But then, when her back's up against the wall and she has no other choice, she performs the cut again and cuts the full skiff, which is the boat, in half. You do learn that in book 2, everyone aboard the skiff, of course, except for the Darkling and his right hand Ivan, end up dying in the fold. This now puts Alina in a playing field that the Darkling is in. One that she never wanted to get to, one that she didn't think was possible for her, but she now has a lot of power and some darkness inside of her. And this will start her on that path of darkness that we see her struggle with throughout the whole trilogy. It's really important to try to showcase that change in your character in the finale moments. How have they changed? How is their decisions different now after everything they've gone through than the very beginning of the book? And then we have the epilogue, which is just titled After, which is apt because the prologue is titled Before. Mal and Alina are on a ship where the crew calls them Fentiman, which is Kirch. It's a little island in this world for ghosts. Alina watches the sea all day for black sails, so she's watching for the Darkling to come after them. They hear tales of the aftermath, and everyone believes the Sun Summoner to be dead. The ending line is, they are orphans again, with no true home but each other, and whatever life they can make together on the other side of the sea. Some important things to note here is that this epilogue is still, or is back, I should say, is back in third person omniscient, where instead of saying Mal and Alina, they are boy and girl. The ending line reminds us again that this is a story about a boy and a girl. It is ultimately a love story for Mal and Alina, a story of how these two can make a life together no matter what life throws at them. So this ending becomes what Save the Cat says as like your final image. Save the Cat was born from screenwriting, and opening image and final image in movies is very powerful. But it's still beneficial to do this in books where we see some sort of symbolism usually in the final image. For this book, the opening image is about a boy and a girl who are orphans, but they are each other's home. And the final image here is a boy and a girl who are orphans again, with no true home, but still each other's home. Even though they went on these separate paths and all these things happen, at the end of the day, they came back to each other and they're by each other's side. Thank you guys for watching. This was way too fun to make, and I'm very excited to be doing this for other books. Let me know down in the comments anything that you want to see me talk about when it comes to doing a book deep dive. We can cover anything from character arcs to world building to setting description. Let me know. I'd love to make what you want to learn about next. If you're done watching this masterclass, you can go ahead and follow my personal writing journey for my project House of Stone, or just catch me in the next video. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye, writers.